History is full of keepsakes, locks of hair, dried flowers, tokens of memory. Everyone collects something, from kings to commoners. These objects are meant to be sweet reminders, but sometimes collecting turns dark. The line between sentiment and obsession is thin. Consider Victorian mourning jewelry. Hair woven into brooches, a way to keep the dead close. Even then, obsession lurked beneath the surface. The urge to possess what we cannot have is timeless. Our story begins in a quiet suburb, with Sarah and Mark. Their story centers on a collection so ordinary no one saw the danger. Simple, colorful hair ties. The kind you find in any drugstore. In Mark's hands, these innocent objects became something else. They became evidence. What happens when a collection isn't about things, but about a person? When each object is a piece of someone else, gathered in secret. The line between memory and possession blurs, and sometimes it leads to something far more sinister. This is where our story begins. Mark and Sarah met by chance, fell in love, and settled into a comfortable routine. Sarah was outgoing, Mark quiet and attentive. He seemed devoted, always focused on her. Early on, Sarah left hair ties everywhere, on tables, in his car. Mark started wearing one on his wrist, saying it kept her close. It was quirky, even sweet. Soon, he collected more. A blue one from a hike, a sparkly one from New Year's. He kept them all, never throwing any away. Sarah's friends noticed, but dismissed it as harmless. Mark stored the old hair ties in a wooden box. Once, when Sarah tried to toss one, Mark's reaction was sharp, then quickly masked by an apology. It was a small crack in the facade. The collection grew, quietly. What seemed like affection was becoming something else. No one saw the warning signs. The hair ties were more than mementos. They were tokens of control. Mark's devotion was shifting. The collection was no longer innocent. It was the beginning of obsession. After 2 years, Sarah felt smothered by Mark's possessiveness and ended things. For Mark, the breakup was not an end, but a new chapter in his obsession. Alone, he clung to the hair ties, his only connection to Sarah. He took them from the box, spread them out, and began cataloguing them in a black journal. Each hair tie got an entry: the day, the memory, the story. He called them gifts, proof of her love. The journal became his manifesto, rewriting their history. He convinced himself she would return because he still had these pieces of her. The entries grew more detailed, more intense. The collection was no longer about memories. It was about ownership. Mark's reality twisted. The hair ties were evidence of a bond that only he believed in. The journal was no longer a diary. It was a record of delusion. Each page marked his descent. The collection was now a shrine to obsession. Mark's grip on reality was slipping. The hair ties were all he had left, and he refused to let go. The black book was his world, and Sarah was at its center. Months passed. Sarah moved on, but unease lingered. She noticed odd things: a car on her street, a sense of being watched. Friends urged her to call the police. A welfare check at Mark's apartment revealed a disturbing scene. Hair ties were everywhere. In jars, on shelves, hundreds of them. The collection was meticulously organized, labeled by date and place. This was no longer a keepsake box. It was a shrine. Police found the black journal, filled with obsessive entries. Maps of Sarah's neighborhood, her workplace, her gym, routes highlighted. Dozens of photos of Sarah, taken without her knowledge. The evidence revealed a chilling pattern of stalking. The hair ties were anchors for Mark's fantasy. He wasn't just keeping old ones, he was collecting new ones, following Sarah to retrieve them. Each item was a piece of her, claimed without consent. The collection was proof of his ongoing surveillance. The jars, the journal, the photos, all pointed to a dangerous obsession. Mark's world revolved around Sarah, even after she left. The police saw the truth. The collection was a map of his fixation. The line between memory and possession was gone. The hair ties were no longer innocent. They were evidence of a crime in progress. Sarah's life had become Mark's project. The collection was his way of holding on. But it was also a warning. Obsession had taken over. The journal revealed Mark's descent. Early entries were sad, but soon turned possessive and angry. He tracked Sarah's every move. Her haircut, her friends, her clothes. He saw her happiness as betrayal. One entry, the betrayal tie, marked a turning point. He watched her with another man, convinced she still belonged to him. The language grew violent, the obsession deeper. The hair ties became trophies of surveillance, not love. Experts called it classic obsessive fixation. Mark believed Sarah was secretly communicating through discarded objects. Each new hair tie reinforced his delusion. The journal was no longer a diary, but a blueprint for control. Mark's inability to let go was escalating. The collection was now a threat. Mark's story is tragic, but not unique. Obsessive collectors use objects, ticket stubs, photos, even trash, to maintain a connection. The collection soothes anxiety, but also justifies obsession. Dr. Eleanor Vance, a criminal psychologist, explained, "For people like Mark, each item is proof the relationship isn't over. The collection becomes a weapon, fueling anger when the target moves on. The shift from keepsake to possession is the danger. When objects become proxies for a person, control follows." Mark's apartment was a model of the world he wanted, one where Sarah could never leave. The warning signs were there. The collection was never about love. It was about ownership. Mark's final journal entries were frantic and angry. Seeing Sarah happy with someone else shattered his fantasy. He wrote, "I will make her remember. She is mine." The last item in the journal was a photo of Sarah's front door at night. The confrontation was inevitable and tragic. Police arrived to a crime scene, the evidence laid bare, the journal, the maps, the hair ties. What began as a sweet gesture ended in violence. Mark's collection was not about memory, but control. When he lost Sarah, he tried to reclaim her through obsession. When that failed, he turned to confrontation. The warning signs had been there all along. The calm before the storm was full of clues. Obsessive collecting isn't about hobbies, it's about control. The collector gathers pieces of a person, not just objects. Experts say it's rooted in insecurity and fear of abandonment. Each item is a victory, a way to keep the relationship alive on their terms. The fantasy world is safe, predictable, and shields from rejection. The behavior escalates, from sentimental objects to items acquired through stalking. The thrill of collecting becomes compulsive. When the objects are things the victim discards, the fixation is dangerous. The collector believes only they can care for these pieces. It's a twisted intimacy that exists only in their mind. This is a story about what we choose not to see. Love is about respect. Obsession is about control. Mark's hair ties were not memories, but trophies of possession. The red flags were there: intense attachment, compulsive collecting, overreactions to small things. We dismiss these as quirks, but sometimes they're warnings. When affection feels like surveillance, it's not romantic. Experts urge us to set boundaries and recognize the danger. Ordinary objects can become clues to obsession. The most chilling part is the simplicity. Hair ties, used and discarded by millions. Danger doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. When ordinary things are used to claim ownership, they become warnings. We must learn to see them for what they are, and never ignore the signs.